Why did a husband kill his family? The story of Jonathon Candy. Today, we're diving into a shocking story that will leave you questioning everything. This is the tale of the Candy family, once seen as the picture-perfect family from Yukon, Oklahoma. But behind their smiles and laughter, something much darker was brewing. In this video, we'll explore the tragic events that unfolded in the Candy household, the investigation that followed, and the heartbreaking truth that came to light. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more shocking stories like this one. On the morning of April 22nd, 2024, at precisely 9:35 a.m., a 911 dispatcher answered a call that would haunt them for years to come. A trembling voice belonging to a 10-year-old boy broke the silence, delivering a statement no one could have prepared for. His parents and 3 older brothers were dead. The boy's fear and anguish were palpable. Police officers rushed to the home on Mirage Street in Yukon, Oklahoma, only to encounter a scene of unimaginable horror. 5 lifeless bodies lay sprawled across the floor, victims of gunfire, their lives extinguished in a single violent act. Among the deceased was the father, 42-year-old Jonathon Candy, whose tragic role in the ordeal only became clear as investigators pieced together the events. Evidence pointed to a horrifying revelation. Jonathon himself had been the one to pull the trigger before turning the gun on himself. Yet, in a deeply puzzling twist, he had chosen to spare the life of his youngest son, who made the fateful call for help. This act of selective mercy left investigators grappling with questions that defied simple answers. The Candy family seemed, on the surface, like the epitome of a happy, thriving American household. Jonathon and his wife, 39-year-old Lindsay Terry Candy, were well loved in their community. Together, they were raising 4 sons, Dylan, teen, Ethan, 14, Lucas, 12, and their youngest, just 10 years old. They lived an ordinary suburban life, free from the visible signs of turmoil that might hint at such a devastating tragedy. There were no reports of domestic violence, no ongoing family disputes, and no apparent financial troubles. Friends and neighbors were left bewildered, asking the same haunting question: what could drive Jonathon to such an unspeakable act? Jonathon was known as a kind-hearted and sociable individual, working part-time at the Paycom Center, a hub for sports and entertainment events and home to the Oklahoma City Thunder. His role at the venue gave him a sense of pride, and he often spoke warmly of the experiences it brought. Those who knew Jonathon described him as a loving father and husband. TJ Armstrong, Ethan's baseball coach and a close family friend, remembered Jonathon as a man who valued kindness above all else. He was always the first to offer a hug or say thank you, TJ told reporters. Lindsay Candy was equally admired for her infectious personality. She had a knack for lighting up any room she entered and making everyone feel at ease. Her energy and warmth were traits she passed on to her children, who mirrored their parents' vibrant, friendly demeanor. Dylan, Ethan, and Lucas were all active, outgoing, and full of promise, with Ethan excelling in baseball and Dylan preparing for college. The youngest son, who survived the ordeal, shared his family's charm and optimism, making the tragedy even more unfathomable. As investigators delved deeper into the Candy family's life, they found themselves at a loss. The family's history offered no easy explanation for the horrors of that April morning. The case left a scar on the community of Yukon, Oklahoma, and became a grim reminder of how even the most idyllic lives can hide the darkest of secrets. What drove Jonathon Candy to commit such a shocking act? As we continue to explore the case, the lingering mystery. The eldest son, Dylan Candy, had recently graduated from Mustang High School and was pursuing higher education at Oklahoma Baptist University. Dylan was a talented musician with an undeniable passion for music. As a drummer in his high school band, he had been a key member of the group and carried his love for percussion into college, where he joined the prestigious Bison Brigade. Teachers and friends alike spoke of Dylan's generous spirit, recalling his readiness to lend a helping hand or offer words of encouragement. His bright future seemed full of promise. The second son, 14-year-old Ethan Candy, channeled his energy into sports, excelling as a baseball player for Mustang North High School. His competitive edge and natural leadership skills made him a standout among his peers. Ethan's coach, TJ Armstrong, shared that Ethan's positivity was unmatched. No matter the challenge, he brought an uplifting presence to the team. For TJ, Ethan was more than just a player. He was his son's best friend, a young man who made everyone around him better. Lucas Candy, the 12-year-old third son, was equally remarkable in his own way. A curious and bright student, Lucas balanced academics and outdoor activities with ease. He often joined Ethan in sports, displaying his love for adventure and camaraderie. Friends of Lucas described him as a bundle of energy, brimming with affection and a zest for life. Together, the Candy siblings embodied the values instilled in them by their parents: warmth, resilience, and a love for learning and living. From the outside, the Candy family appeared to be the picture of happiness. They were seen as a tightly knit group that loved spending time together and creating joyful memories. Yet beneath the surface, something sinister was brewing, something no one could have foreseen. On the morning of April 22nd, 2024, the youngest member of the family awoke expecting another ordinary day filled with the comforting rituals of breakfast and conversation. Instead, he found himself stepping into a nightmare. At around 9:00 a.m., the boy left his room, unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded while he slept. The hum of his bedroom fan had masked the earlier chaos, allowing him to remain oblivious to the horror beyond his door. As he ventured into the hallway, a deafening silence hung in the air, briefly interrupted by the sound of the fire alarm before it abruptly stopped. What greeted him next was a scene he would never forget. Bloodstains marked the floor, and the lifeless bodies of his parents and 3 older brothers lay in pools of blood. The world as he knew it had been shattered, leaving him as the sole survivor of a tragedy that defied comprehension. What made the scene even more horrifying was the grim realization that each member of the Candy family had been shot to death. Overwhelmed by panic and trauma, the youngest son picked up a phone and dialed 911, his trembling voice recounting the unthinkable. His entire family had been murdered. Police and emergency responders rushed to the scene, only to be confronted with a tragedy that defied comprehension. The lifeless bodies of Lindsay Candy and her 3 sons, Dylan, Ethan, and Lucas, lay in pools of blood. Jonathon Candy, the father, was also found dead, a gunshot wound to his head and a firearm lying close to his body. At first, investigators suspected that the Candy family had fallen victim to a violent home invasion. It seemed plausible that an intruder had entered the home and carried out the massacre before fleeing. However, as the investigation progressed, news of the tragedy sent shockwaves through the community. Friends, neighbors, and relatives struggled to come to terms with the devastating revelation. One neighbor, speaking to reporters, described Jonathon as a cheerful and kind-hearted man. "I can't believe he would do something like this," the neighbor said, echoing the disbelief shared by many who knew the family. To those closest to them, the idea that Jonathon could commit such an unthinkable act seemed utterly incomprehensible. The Candy children's friends were equally devastated. Dylan's college classmates and bandmates, Ethan's baseball teammates, and Lucas's young companions were stunned by the sudden loss. The boys had been vibrant, talented, and full of potential, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. Grief-stricken, those who knew the family were left wondering how such a loving household could become the site of such a horrific tragedy. As investigators delved deeper into the case, a critical question loomed. Why? Why would Jonathon kill his wife and 3 children? Even more puzzling, why would he spare the life of his youngest son, the only survivor of the massacre? These questions haunted not only the investigators, but everyone who had known the Candy family. They searched for answers, hoping to make sense of a situation that seemed beyond reason. Despite their efforts, investigators found no immediate signs of domestic violence, financial struggles, or interpersonal conflict within the Candy household. By all accounts, the family had been happy and close-knit, enjoying a life filled with love and mutual support. With no clear motives emerging, the investigators turned their focus toward Jonathon's personal life, hoping to uncover any hidden struggles, stressors, or The investigation into the Candy family tragedy required meticulous scrutiny of Jonathon Candy's life, including his finances, mental health, and relationships with his wife and children. Determined to uncover the truth, investigators combed through the family's home with particular attention to the room where the horrifying events had unfolded. Every detail, no matter how small, was critical in piecing together the puzzle of that devastating morning. The crime scene was a grim sight, soaked in blood and heavy with sorrow. Strangely, there were no signs of struggle or resistance from any of the victims. This raised a haunting question. If the other family members did not resist and the youngest son was asleep in his room, oblivious to the chaos, Why had Jonathon spared his life? The investigators found no immediate answers, but this chilling detail became a central focus of their inquiry. It added another layer of mystery to an already baffling case. To understand Jonathon's state of mind, the police began interviewing people who had known him well, his neighbors, co-workers, and family members. At work, Jonathon was remembered as a man who brought laughter and positivity to those around him. His colleagues described him as someone who could effortlessly lift the mood in any situation. Jonathon was always cracking jokes and making people feel at ease, one co-worker told the investigators. Not a single co-worker reported seeing signs of emotional distress or mental health struggles in Jonathon's behavior. He was never known to lose his temper or display any anger. For those who worked alongside him, the idea that he could commit such a horrifying act was unimaginable. They described him as a man who valued harmony and kindness, leaving investigators grappling with more questions than answers. Neighbors also spoke highly of Jonathon, painting a picture of a helpful and friendly man who was always ready to lend a hand. One neighbor, Bertram, shared memories of Jonathon's generosity. "He helped me fix my car and lawnmower once and even repaired ceiling fans for another neighbor," Bertram recalled. To him, Jonathon was not just a good neighbor, but also a good friend. He struggled to reconcile the man he had known with the tragic events that had unfolded. Bertram, like many others, was adamant that he had never seen any signs of trouble between Jonathon and Lindsay. "They always seemed like a happy couple," he told reporters. For those closest to the Candy family, there were no warning signs, no visible cracks in the family's seemingly perfect life. The lack of any apparent motive or explanation left investigators determined to dig deeper into Jonathon's personal life, hoping to uncover answers to the devastating mystery. A neighbor who had been close to Jonathon shared fond memories of their time together, including their shared hobby of flying drones. According to the neighbor, Jonathon never mentioned any significant issues with his wife Lindsay or hinted at any trouble at home. However, when investigators began interviewing Jonathon's family and close relatives, a different picture began to emerge. According to one relative close to Lindsay, she had recently confided in them about ongoing arguments with Jonathon regarding their finances. Although these arguments seemed typical of financial strain, no one could have anticipated they might escalate into such a catastrophic tragedy. For investigators, however, this revelation was a significant lead. It prompted a deeper investigation into the Candy family's financial situation, which, as it turned out, this discovery led investigators to hypothesize that financial stress could have played a major role in Jonathon's actions. They speculated that Jonathon may have felt overwhelmed by the burden of providing for his family while earning too little to meet their growing needs. It seemed possible that he had reached a breaking point, succumbing to the crushing weight of debt and the feeling of inadequacy as a provider. Further interviews with Jonathon's relatives revealed more about his state of mind in the months leading up to the tragedy. Some family members shared that Jonathon had expressed dissatisfaction with his job, feeling unfulfilled, and as though he hadn't achieved anything significant in life. He also reportedly felt trapped in his role as a husband and father, burdened by responsibilities he saw no way of escaping. These sentiments painted a picture of a man struggling silently, perhaps too proud or ashamed to seek help. The police began to dig even deeper, shifting their focus to the strains within Jonathon and Lindsay's marriage. While neighbors and friends largely described the couple as happy, family members closer to them revealed that arguments had become more frequent in the months before the tragedy. These disputes, combined with the financial struggles and Jonathon's feelings of inadequacy, offered investigators a possible motive for his unthinkable actions, but the exact reasons behind the tragedy still eluded definitive explanation, leaving everyone grasping for answers. Most of the arguments between Jonathon and Lindsay revolved around their worsening financial situation. Lindsay had expressed concerns about the family's future to several relatives, while Jonathon felt increasingly powerless to control their spiraling debts. On the night before the tragedy, tensions reached a boiling point during a particularly heated argument between the couple. According to relatives, this confrontation may have been the tipping point that pushed Jonathon over the edge, leading to the horrific decision to kill his wife and 3 sons. In light of these revelations, investigators sought to uncover what transpired during the final moments of that fateful argument. They hoped to determine what could have driven Jonathon to commit such an unthinkable act. While searching his workspace for clues, the police discovered a diary Jonathon had been keeping for several months. Its contents shed disturbing light on his mental state and internal struggles. The diary painted a picture of a man consumed by frustration, isolation, and a sense of disorientation. In one entry, Jonathon expressed feelings of being unappreciated by his wife, lamenting that he was no longer the man his family needed. Other entries revealed thoughts of hopelessness and despair about the family's future. Some passages even hinted at the darkest thoughts of giving up entirely. The diary provided investigators with a window into Jonathon's troubled psyche, revealing a man grappling with a serious mental health crisis. Despite these warning signs, Jonathon had shared none of his struggles with friends or family. This reluctance to seek help became a key focus for investigators who called in forensic psychologist Dr. Joni Johnston to analyze Jonathon's behavior and mental state. Dr. Johnston reviewed the diary alongside other evidence and interviews, providing a psychological perspective on the tragedy. Dr. Johnston's analysis suggested that Jonathon may have been suffering from severe depression and potentially psychosis in the months leading up to the incident. However, he concealed his struggles behind a facade of humor and positivity, portraying himself as a strong, fun-loving man. Dr. Johnston explained that depression often manifests differently in men who are less likely than women to share their emotional pain or seek help. Her report highlighted that men facing depression often suppress their feelings, which can lead to sudden, uncontrollable emotional breakdowns. These outbursts are frequently triggered by external pressures, such as financial stress. As investigators delved deeper into Jonathon's diary, they uncovered increasingly negative reflections on his family life and his perceived inadequacies. Each entry painted a clearer picture of a man torn apart by internal conflicts. Outwardly, Jonathon appeared to be a cheerful and humorous individual, but inwardly, he was overwhelmed by psychological torment. Dr. Johnston's findings underscored how societal pressures often discourage men from seeking mental health support, leaving them to suffer in silence until their struggles culminate in devastating consequences. Societal expectations placed immense pressure on Jonathon Candy, as is often the case for men who are seen as the pillars of their families. Society expects men to excel as providers and maintain control, financially and emotionally, regardless of the challenges they face. This pressure can make them feel that failure is not an option. Investigators considered these expectations as a significant factor that may have contributed to Jonathon's deteriorating mental state. One lingering mystery of the tragedy was why Jonathon spared his youngest son. Was it an act of last-minute remorse? Or perhaps the bond between father and son was unique, something that stopped Jonathon from carrying out his fatal plan to its fullest extent. Investigators have yet to find a definitive answer. While speculation abounds, no concrete evidence has emerged to explain why the youngest boy's life was spared while the rest of the family was tragically taken. In the days following the incident, Ethan Candy's baseball team, the Mustang Misfits, held a heartfelt memorial gathering in his honor. Rhonda Armstrong, the wife of Ethan's coach, expressed her disbelief at the news. Her son Cooper had been Ethan's best friend, and their families had been close for 3 years. Rhonda shared with Stackhouse also noted Dylan's sociable personality and his ability to form friendships effortlessly wherever he went. One of his favorite memories of Dylan occurred in August 2023 during the Bison Brigade's band camp. While rehearsing the drumline cadence for the first time, Dylan discovered it featured a solo just for him, a moment that highlighted his exceptional musical ability. In honor of Dylan, the Bison Brigade announced plans to retire his bass drum and uniform. They also decided to establish a memorial on the floor where the band department resides, paying tribute to his short yet impactful time at the university. Ethan Candy, a 9th grader at Mustang High, was an integral part of the Mustang youth sports baseball team. His family was a constant presence at his practices and games, supporting him wholeheartedly. On social media, the league described Ethan as an incredible kid who could brighten anyone's day with his sense of humor and infectious positivity. Coaches and teammates alike admired Ethan's uplifting spirit and his ability to bring laughter to even the toughest situations. Ethan's best friend was Cooper Armstrong, the son of baseball coach T.J. Armstrong. Their bond was immediate as they both shared a great sense of humor and a positive outlook on life. Their teammates often referred to them as twins because of how inseparable they were. Coach Armstrong fondly called Ethan his sweet little candy man, reflecting the joy Ethan brought to everyone around him. In his memory, the Mustang Youth Sports baseball team planned to install a memorial bench at Mustang High School, ensuring Ethan's legacy would remain part of the community. The youngest of the Candy family, Luke Candy, was a sixth grader at Meadowbrook Intermediate School. Though Lucas was the smallest of the siblings, he was full of life, energy, and curiosity. During Ethan's baseball games, Lucas could often be seen playing with the younger siblings of other players or running up and down the bleachers. T.J. Armstrong described Lucas as a happy and kind child who loved to play and explore, always finding joy in the little things. Lucas's vibrant personality left a lasting impression on everyone who knew him. Whether he was playing in the dirt during his brother's practices or running around the bleachers, he radiated a sense of warmth and fun. His playful and affectionate nature endeared him to the families at the ballpark, who remember him fondly as an energetic and cheerful boy who loved to be outdoors. The Candy family's tragedy touched every corner of the community, from Dylan's university bandmates to Ethan's baseball league and Lucas's school friends. Each member of the family brought joy, laughter, and kindness to those around them. Their absence is profoundly felt, but their memories continue to live on in the hearts of those who loved them. The youngest son of Jonathon and Lindsay Candy is now the sole surviving member of the Candy family. It is almost impossible to fathom the depth of psychological trauma the boy has endured and will continue to face. His life changed irreparably within a matter of hours, leaving him in need of extensive therapy and support to help him navigate this devastating tragedy. While he is at the center of this heartbreaking story, the effects of the incident have reverberated far beyond him, devastating the close-knit Yukon community. The tragedy has deeply affected everyone who knew the Candy family. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues have expressed their grief, struggling to come to terms with the enormity of the loss. Brian Stackhouse, Oklahoma Baptist University's director of athletic bands, shared a list of mental health resources with his band students and encouraged them to seek help whenever needed. This initiative reflects a growing awareness of the need for support during times of immense grief and shock. Similar tragedies in the past have shown a disturbing pattern. A family member under severe stress succumbs to mental health issues and commits unthinkable acts. Financial pressures often play a key role in these situations. Jonathon Candy's struggles are reminiscent of cases like John List's, where overwhelming financial burdens and untreated mental health issues culminated in horrific outcomes. One infamous case occurred on November 9, 1971, when John List killed his entire immediate family. That day, he first shot his 47-year-old wife, Helen, and his 84-year-old mother, Alma, while his children were at school. Later, he murdered his 16-year-old daughter, Patricia, and his 13-year-old son, Frederick, as they returned home. List's actions were calculated and cold, as he even attended his elder son, John Frederick's soccer game, drove him home afterward, and killed him as well. The investigation into List's actions revealed financial hardship as the driving force behind his decisions. After losing his job at the Jersey City Bank, List kept the news from his family out of fear of humiliation. He pretended to go to work daily, maintaining the illusion of normalcy while their financial situation worsened. To stave off bankruptcy, he even withdrew funds from his elderly mother's bank account, but it wasn't enough to reverse their downward spiral. When presented with two choices, seeking welfare support or ending his family's lives, List tragically chose the latter. A psychologist later testified in court that List saw welfare as a humiliation that he couldn't endure. This internalized stigma around seeking help contributed to the catastrophic decision that destroyed his family. It is a chilling reminder of how untreated mental health issues and societal pressures can lead to unimaginable outcomes. The Candy family tragedy underscores the critical need for mental health awareness, particularly for individuals struggling under financial strain. The societal expectation for men to be unwavering providers can prevent them from seeking help, as was the case for both Jonathon Candy and John List. These stories serve as painful lessons on the importance of addressing mental health challenges and providing support systems to prevent such devastating events. On April 12, 1990, John List was convicted of 5 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of his family members. Despite his conviction, he denied direct responsibility for the killings, claiming that his mental state had driven him to commit such horrific acts. List argued that post-traumatic stress disorder had impaired his judgment, and he filed an appeal on these grounds. However, the court rejected his appeal and upheld his conviction, sentencing him to 5 consecutive life terms in prison. The Candy family tragedy bears chilling similarities to List's case. Jonathon Candy, suffering from severe depression and mental health struggles, made a decision to keep his condition to himself. This led to an unimaginable act where he killed his wife and 3 children, leaving behind a son who would live with the trauma of that night for the rest of his life. According to Master Sergeant Gary Knight of the Oklahoma City Police, the investigation ceased once it became clear that Jonathon's mental health was the underlying factor in the tragedy. The devastating outcome of Jonathon Candy's mental health struggles highlights the importance of seeking help and sharing one's struggles. Had Jonathon reached out to others or been able to address his mental health, the tragic loss of life could have been avoided. His decision to remain silent ultimately shattered the lives of his family, leaving behind a legacy of trauma that will impact his surviving son and the community for years to come. The tragic events surrounding the Candy family remind us of the hidden struggles that can lie beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect lives. It's a stark reminder of how financial pressures, mental health struggles, and unspoken burdens can build up and explode in ways no one could have predicted. In this case, the impact on the surviving son will last a lifetime, and the loss of an entire family serves as a painful lesson about the importance of mental health awareness and communication. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonated with you. Your support helps us continue to bring these powerful stories to light. Stay informed, stay aware, and we'll see you next time.